Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In the vast, dusty plains of New Mexico, where silence stretches for miles and the wind carries only the echoes of solitary coyotes, a man lived at the edge of the world. It was a place forgotten by maps, where roads, half erased, became earthy scars under an immense sky. Blacktop was scarce, replaced by rough gravel and red sand that seeped everywhere, into boots, nostrils, thoughts. The merciless sun melted watches and cracked dreams. And every night, the sky took on incandescent hues, as if the earth burned with an ancient fire. In the middle of this arid expanse, Terrence Coleman, an African-American with skin as dark as burnt wood, lived alone in a battered and faded trailer, planted on a vacant lot that even vultures flew over without curiosity. The place, without an address or a name, attracted no neighbors, tourists, or developers. There was no gas, no stable electricity, no network, only a generator that coughed in the morning and a half-empty propane tank. But it was home, a territory he had tamed over time and silence. To the world, to those who still encountered him, he was just a poor devil, dirty, taciturn, probably crazy. Some thought he was an ex-con, a delusional veteran, or worse. But the rare sensitive souls who dared to meet his gaze discovered something else, a quiet nobility, a discreet but indestructible light in his tired eyes. He wasn't broken. He had been broken. A crucial nuance. A former U.S. Army mechanic, Terrence had served for 15 years, repairing engines for tanks, armored vehicles, and helicopters. He had been decorated twice for acts of technical bravery under pressure. But the war hadn't killed him, the country had failed him. A fall on a civilian construction site, a poorly treated back injury, a false accusation of tool theft, a distracted court-appointed lawyer, and everything had collapsed. His home, his rights, his reputation. Since then, he had lived on the margins, not by choice, but out of dignity. His only wealth now, his carefully maintained tools, his encyclopedic memory of engines, and his heart, intact despite the blows. He helped the rare lost passers-by, repaired farmers' vehicles in exchange for a few supplies, and in the evenings, under the flickering light of an oil lamp, he mentally reviewed the plans for V8S and the turbine ignition sequences, like reciting prayers. That July day, the sun beat down with a particular cruelty. The air rippled above the ground, and even the lizards stayed in the shade. Terrence had just finished greasing an old gearbox when, in the distance, a trail of dust appeared. A car was approaching, fast, too fast for the road. He looked up, squinted. A white Cadillac Escalade, gleaming despite the dust, screeched to a halt about 100 meters from his caravan. Steam was pouring from the hood. The engine had just died. The door opened. A woman got out. Tall, slim, well-groomed despite the heat, in a cream-colored suit and high heels, she wore large sunglasses and held a smartphone in a trembling hand. She spun around, visibly panicked at finding herself in this desert with no signal, in the middle of nowhere. Holy shit. No signal here? Great. Just great, she grumbled, frantically tapping the screen. Terrence watched for a moment. He could have kept his distance. After all, he knew what his appearance inspired: distrust, fear, prejudice. But he also knew what it was like to be stuck under that sun with a dead engine. So he stepped forward. Bare-chested under faded overalls, his arms covered in grease, he maintained a straight, imposing, almost calm posture. "Do you have a problem, madam?" he asked in a deep, calm voice, as if he were speaking to the engine itself. The woman jumped and stared at him. Her fingers tightened around her bag. She hesitated. Then her gaze moved from the caravan to the man, then to the vehicle. The engine overheated. It started smoking. "And I have to be in Santa Fe in less than an hour for an important meeting." You're a mechanic?" Terrence simply nodded. "I was. Now I help out when I can." "Open the hood." In less than 5 minutes, Terrence had located the source of the problem. He slowly knelt under the hood, his gaze focused, his calloused hands sliding with almost surgical precision between the hot metal parts. A cracked coolant hose, a complete loss of fluid, and a botched purge by a shop that clearly hadn't bothered to do it right. He shook his head. "They charged you dearly, I imagine, for such shoddy workmanship," he said without looking up. Elena, still standing some distance away, crossed her arms, puzzled. Few people spoke to her in that tone. She was Elena Whitmore, heiress to the Whitmore Industries empire, a multi-billion-dollar energy company with operations on 3 continents. In public, she was known for her speeches in stilettos, her strategic coldness, and her ability to bend entire boards of directors. But there, in this desert forgotten by all, facing this man whom society would have gladly erased from its maps, she was only a woman broken down, vulnerable, and strangely touched by the silent mastery of this mechanic who appeared from nowhere. Terence stood up, his fingers blackened with grease. He took an old metal flask, poured water from a homemade filtered container into it, and slowly began to feed the radiator. He had no gloves, no diagnostic tablet, no lifting platform, just experience, listening to vibrations, touch, and instinct. "You sound like you know what you're doing, Terence," she said finally, in a lower, less defensive tone. He shrugged, without boasting. "An engine is still an engine. It doesn't matter if it's a Cadillac or a lawnmower. You just have to know when to listen, and when to let it cool down. Like people, in fact." His words surprised her. She didn't respond immediately. She simply watched him work, his movements fluid, almost meditative. For the first time in months, perhaps years, she felt something strangely soothing. No judgment, no hidden interest. Just a man doing what he knew how, well, without expecting anything. When the engine restarted, with a steady, healthy rumble, Elena was speechless. The dashboard lit up, the temperature stabilized, and the car vibrated gently, as if waking from a well-deserved nap. She looked at Terence in disbelief. "It's amazing. I don't have the words." He wiped his hands on an old, holy rag, remaining calm. Nothing magical. Just a machine that needed to be listened to a little. She reached into her leather purse, pulling out her wallet. "Tell me how much I owe you. Seriously. What you just did would have cost me hundreds elsewhere." He raised a hand, interrupting her gently. "Just a cold bottle of water, and a sincere smile. That's all." She paused. A genuine smile? She wasn't sure she'd given one in weeks. Maybe even months. Yet, at this precise moment, amidst the sand, dust, and sleeping crickets, she smiled. Not the promotional smile at conferences, nor the one at gala dinners. A real smile, almost fragile, almost embarrassed. "People like you are rare," she murmured. "It's especially rare for people to ask that question," he replied with a half-smile. A silence. Something invisible passed between them. Neither seduction nor pity, but a form of raw respect, the kind that cannot be bought or measured. She got back into her vehicle. As she closed the door, she looked at him one last time. "Thanks, Terence. Really. If you ever need anything. I already have everything I need, Mrs. Whitmore. But thank you." Then she put the car into forward gear. The vehicle sped off in a cloud of dust that slowly dissipated in the dry air. And Terence, arms crossed, stared at the empty road. He didn't yet know that what he had just repaired wasn't just an engine, but a vision of the world, in the heart of a powerful woman. 3 days later. The New Mexico sky was a brilliant blue, without a single cloud in sight, as if it had been washed away by the wind. Terence crouched beside an old quad half buried in the sand, abandoned by a tourist years earlier. He was tightening the last bolts of an engine he had restarted using only his memory and a few spare parts scavenged here and there. His forehead was streaming with sweat, but his gaze remained calm and focused, as always. Suddenly, a dull, violent rumble split the air. It wasn't a thunderstorm. It was higher-pitched, more metallic. He looked up. A sleek black helicopter appeared out of nowhere. It descended in a slow spiral, like a mechanical falcon searching for its prey. The power of its blades unleashed a veritable cyclone of dust, sending tarps flying, bending dry shrubs, and rattling the caravan's metal sheets. The sky, peaceful just seconds earlier, became a tumult. Terence froze. He blinked. He'd never seen a helicopter land here, not even within 100 kilometers. No one flew here. No one stopped. This desert was a place the world avoided, and that was precisely why he'd found refuge here. He stood there, his heart suddenly heavy in his chest. Was this a mistake? An army mission? A bad joke? Or something else? As the blades began to slow and the dust settled slowly like a theater curtain, two men in dark suits descended, discreet but clearly accustomed to well-oiled operations. They opened the side door, and a female figure appeared. No heels. No sunglasses. No expensive suit. Just simple beige pants, a rolled-up white shirt, and in his hand, a bottle of iced water, still beaded with condensation. It was her. Elena Whitmore. She approached without solemnity, with a sincere, almost shy smile, and raised the bottle. I promised you that, didn't I? Terence, at first too stunned to respond, let out a deep, low laugh that echoed in the silent immensity around them. I have to admit you have a sense of showmanship. I didn't think a simple smile was worth a helicopter landing. She smiled wider. It's not the smile. It's you. She moved closer, held out the bottle, which he accepted slowly, still troubled by the unreality of the scene. Then, without preamble, she took a cream-colored envelope from her leather satchel. What you did the other day was more than just a repair. You opened my eyes, Terence. I've seen college-educated engineers, paid $300,000 a year, who couldn't do what you did with a rusty screwdriver and a tin canteen. But it wasn't just your competence that struck me. It was your humanity. She paused. I spoke with my team. And with our lawyers. We searched your file. You were betrayed, crushed by a system that only protects those who have the means to defend themselves. It's an injustice, pure and simple. And I decided I couldn't ignore it. She handed him the envelope. Here's an offer. A position as chief engineer for our clean energy conversion project, right here. We want to establish an operational base in the region. And you are the soul of this land. You'll have a comfortable salary, a new house, health coverage, a company vehicle, and most importantly, the opportunity to erase this unjust criminal record. Our lawyers are already on the case. If you accept, you'll leave this caravan not as a pauper, but as a respected man. Terence stared down for a long moment. He still held the water bottle in his hand, but his mind was elsewhere. Memories rose like bubbles in murky water. The years of solitude, the winters without heat, the humiliations, the heavy silences at the corner store, the glances that ignored him. All those moments that had taught him to no longer hope. The wind was blowing gently now, as if even nature had fallen silent to listen. Then Terence finally looked up at her. His pupils shone with a strange light, neither joy nor sadness, but a silent recognition, man to woman, human to human. Guess, my old screwdriver saved my life, after all. He smiled slowly, then added. I accept. But I warn you, I don't work with white gloves and talking machines. I listen to the engines like others listen to the rain. She laughs. Then we have everything we need. And behind them, the sun began to slowly descend, casting their shadows on the red earth. A new era had just begun. A year later, the desert landscape hadn't changed, still the red soil, the mountains on the horizon, the endless sky, but something in the air was different. As if the wind itself now carried the echo of a story no one wanted to forget. Terence Coleman, once invisible, now lived in a modern, sleek, and eco-friendly house, built with local materials and designed to blend in with the land he'd never left. The house was simple but beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the desert, solar panels on the roof, a personal workshop out back, and a small garden he carefully tended. Inside, there were no flashy luxuries, just useful items, an old screwdriver framed on the wall, and a framed photo of him and his team in front of a model of the Eco-Technology Center. Every morning, he donned his blue work jacket embroidered with Chief Engineer Coleman and headed to the main workshop of the Whitmore Center for Sustainable Energy, located a few hundred meters away. He led a team of young, bright engineers, men and women, from all over the country. Many had graduated from top schools, with brand new degrees and state-of-the-art laptops. But despite their theoretical knowledge, they listened to him as one would listen to an old master. They all called him, with respect tinged with affection, Mr. C. Some wrote down his every sentence. Others followed him into the field workshops to observe his unique way of dialogue with the machines. Because Terence didn't just repair, he understood, he felt. He often told them, "A good mechanic is not someone who replaces a part, but someone who recognizes when a part is suffering." But even more than his house or his post, what most upset the visitors to the site was what was found at the entrance to the center, an old caravan, completely restored, repainted in white and light blue, its windows reinforced, its wheels stuck in the ground like the roots of a tree that refused to be uprooted. Beside it, a golden metal plaque was screwed onto a stone base. "Here lived a man we thought was lost. He didn't wait for help, he gave it. And he changed the way we see the world." The center's employees, visitors, and schoolchildren on field trips always stopped in front of it. They took photos. They read the inscription quietly, like a mantra. And some even left a symbolic flower or bolt as a tribute. Terence, however, hadn't changed his soul. Every Friday, he put away his uniform, left the center, and opened the doors of La Station du Respect, a small wooden workshop he had built with his own hands, right next to the old dried-up well. There, he repaired children's bicycles, isolated farmers' generators, and water pumps for small families forgotten by the infrastructure, free of charge. The locals knew they could come without shame. He never asked for money. On the wall of the workshop, a slate bore a simple message. "You don't measure a man by his wealth, but by what he does when no one is looking." Elena Whitmore, for her part, had become much more than a benefactor. She often came unescorted, with cooked meals, or simply to chat with Terence, sometimes about business, sometimes about life. Their friendship was sincere, made up of comfortable silences and knowing glances. Elena often said that this project, this center, this region, this caravan, was the most human thing she had ever built. And when, sometimes, Terence was asked why he had chosen to stay here, on this dry and harsh land, when he could have gone to live comfortably elsewhere, in a seaside town or a chic suburb, he would raise his eyes towards the horizon, and always answer the same thing, with that quiet half-smile. Because sometimes, the most beautiful seeds grow in the dust. And sometimes, a simple broken engine leads to a landing you never forget. And those who heard this sentence understood that this desert, once a place of oblivion, had become a sanctuary. A place where one man transformed loneliness into strength, injustice into wisdom, and dust into living memory.